Most high achievers are trapped in a cycle that guarantees they'll never reach true wealth. You're working harder than ever, checking more boxes, staying busier than your peers, yet your bank account doesn't reflect the effort you're putting in. I know this feeling because I lived it for years, convinced that more activity meant more progress. Here's what I discovered. There are three specific behaviors that feel incredibly productive but actually block real success. They're so ingrained in high achiever culture that questioning them feels like heresy. But the wealthy understand something the busy don't. Real transformation happens through strategic subtraction, not addition. Stop these three things and you'll unlock leveraged wealth instead of just working harder. I broke free from this trap by doing less, not more, and I'll show you exactly how. The first trap is the most seductive. Staying busy feels like progress, but it creates a poverty mindset. Your brain has been hijacked by what I call the neural pathway trap. Every time you complete a small task, check an email, or cross something off your list, your brain releases dopamine. You're literally getting high off motion, not results. This is why you can work 12-hour days and feel accomplished yet make no real progress toward wealth. Your brain rewards you for being busy, not for being effective. The wealthy understand this distinction. They focus on 3 high-impact activities while others juggle 50 meaningless tasks. Real transformation happens through strategic subtraction, not addition. Every successful person I know has a stop-doing list that's longer than their to-do list. They've learned to disappear from activities that feel important but generate no leverage. Here's what most people miss. Busyness becomes an identity, not just a behavior. You start introducing yourself by how busy you are. "I'm swamped" becomes your default response to "how are you?" This is identity homeostasis at work. Your nervous system will sabotage any attempt to slow down because being busy has become who you are, not what you do. I watched this play out with a client who was making 6 figures but working 80-hour weeks. She was addicted to the feeling of being needed, of having her calendar packed, of being the person everyone came to with problems. Her busyness made her feel important, but it kept her broke relative to her potential. The breakthrough came when she subtracted 90% of her activities and focused only on revenue-generating work. Within 6 months, she doubled her income while working half the hours. The key wasn't adding more productivity hacks or time management systems. It was strategic disappearance from everything that didn't multiply her results. Your brain will resist this initially because it's been trained to equate activity with value. But the wealthy operate from a different principle. They measure impact, not effort. They understand that 10 minutes of the right activity creates more wealth than 10 hours of busy work. The neural rewiring happens when you start measuring results instead of activity. Instead of celebrating how many emails you answered, celebrate how much revenue you generated. Instead of feeling proud about your packed schedule, feel proud about the leverage you created. This isn't about being lazy. This is about being strategic. The wealthy are ruthlessly selective about where they invest their energy because they understand that energy is finite but leverage is infinite. They've learned to create systems that work without their constant presence, while the busy remain trapped in trading time for money. The first step is recognizing that your busyness addiction is keeping you poor. The second step is beginning the strategic subtraction process that wealthy people have mastered. The second behavior that blocks real success is even more insidious. Complexity becomes a form of procrastination disguised as sophistication. High achievers fall into this trap because it feels intelligent, strategic, and thorough. But complexity is often just fear dressed up in fancy clothes. Your brain craves complexity because it feels safer than simplicity. Simple solutions feel too easy, like you're missing something important. So you create elaborate investment portfolios with 17 different asset classes. You build business systems with 43 moving parts. You develop morning routines that require an hour of setup and 27 different supplements. Here's the psychological truth nobody talks about. We make things harder than they need to be because difficulty feels like depth. If the solution isn't complex, it doesn't match our self-image as sophisticated professionals. This is why the most successful people I know use embarrassingly simple systems while everyone else drowns in complexity. The wealthy understand the minimalist wealth principle. Fewer moving parts create more leverage. Warren Buffett doesn't use complex trading algorithms. He buys great companies and holds them. Jeff Bezos didn't create a complicated business model. He focused on customer obsession and long-term thinking. The complexity came later, after the simple foundation was established. I learned this lesson the hard way when I was managing investments across 12 different platforms, using 7 productivity apps, and following 5 different morning routines I'd learned from various gurus. I felt sophisticated and comprehensive. I was actually scattered and ineffective. The breakthrough came during what I call strategic disappearance from complicated systems. I consolidated everything into three simple categories: what makes money, what saves money, and what multiplies time. Everything else got eliminated. My results improved dramatically, not because I was doing more, but because I was doing less with greater focus. This isn't about being simplistic. This is about being strategically simple. There's a difference between simple solutions and simplistic thinking. Simple solutions are elegant and powerful. Simplistic thinking is shallow and incomplete. The wealthy master simple solutions that create complex results, while most people create complex solutions that produce simple results. The complexity trap shows up everywhere in high achiever culture. You see it in investment strategies that require constant monitoring instead of passive growth. You see it in business models that demand your presence for every decision instead of systems that run themselves. You see it in personal development approaches that require tracking 17 different metrics instead of focusing on the three that actually matter. Your energy is finite, but complexity is infinite. Every additional moving part in your system requires mental bandwidth to maintain. Every extra step in your process creates friction. Every complicated tool you adopt becomes another thing to manage instead of a thing that manages itself. I worked with an entrepreneur who had built what he called a sophisticated business model. He was tracking 47 different key performance indicators, using 12 software platforms, and had created a decision-making process that required input from 9 different people. He was proud of how comprehensive and thorough his approach was. The problem was that his sophistication was killing his profits. He spent more time managing his systems than growing his business. The complexity he'd created to ensure success was actually preventing it. When we simplified his operation to focus on 3 core metrics and 5 essential tools, his revenue increased by 60% in 4 months. The wealthy buy simplicity while others create complexity. They pay premium prices for solutions that eliminate steps, reduce decisions, and remove friction. They understand that the most expensive thing you can buy is your own time back, and complexity is the thief that steals it. This requires an identity shift from being the person who knows all the sophisticated strategies to being the person who gets the best results with the least effort. Your ego will resist this because simplicity doesn't feel impressive, but your bank account will reward it because simplicity creates leverage. The third and most devastating trap is trading hours for dollars, which is the opposite of wealth creation. Even high achievers get stuck in premium versions of employee thinking. You might charge more per hour than most people, but you're still trapped in the fundamental equation that limits wealth. Your time equals your money. This thinking keeps you imprisoned because there are only 24 hours in a day. No matter how skilled you become or how much you charge, you hit a ceiling. The wealthy escape this prison by understanding leverage. They create systems that work without their constant presence. The leverage mindset shift changes everything. Instead of asking, how can I work more efficiently? You start asking, how can I create value without being present? Instead of optimizing your time, you start building systems that multiply your impact. Instead of being the bottleneck, you become the architect. High achievers often resist this shift because it requires letting go of control. You've built your success on being indispensable, on being the person who handles the important decisions, on being irreplaceable. But irreplaceable also means unable to scale. The wealthy understand that being replaceable in the day-to-day operations is what makes them invaluable as owners. I see this pattern constantly: successful professionals who have created golden handcuffs for themselves. They're making good money. But they can't step away without everything falling apart. They've built businesses that require their presence, investments that need their constant attention, and income streams that depend on their direct involvement. The identity reset required to stop being your own bottleneck is profound. You have to shift from being the person who does the work to being the person who creates the systems that do the work. You have to move from being the expert who solves problems to being the architect who builds problem-solving systems. The wealthy buy time while others sell it. They invest in automation, delegation, and systems that work while they sleep. They understand that real wealth comes from owning assets that appreciate and generate income without their direct involvement. They've learned to create value through ownership rather than effort. Real success comes from what you stop doing, not what you start. The busyness addiction, complexity trap, and time for money prison are keeping you from the leveraged wealth you deserve. Each of these behaviors feels productive, but they're actually blocking your path to real financial freedom. Here's your challenge: pick one area to simplify this week. Subtract 3 activities that feel important but don't create leverage. Choose simplicity over sophistication in one system you're currently overcomplicating. Start building one thing that works without your constant presence. Subscribe for more wealth mindset shifts that actually work. because breaking free from these traps is just the beginning of your transformation.